Hey guys, welcome to Waypoint X Wednesdays. My name is Judd, so let's get started. Well, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Like I said, my name is Judd, and this is Waypoint X Wednesdays and Offroad podcast, and we really do appreciate you tuning in. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment, and hit that bell for all notifications. If you're on Spotify, make sure you hit that follow button. We really do appreciate it. Now, whether you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify, please send us a message or leave us a comment on a podcast idea for the future. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to talk about your ideas. So if you think you have a good idea, please send it our way. But before we get into today's main subject, which I think you're going to like because it's a little bit on the edgy side, before we get there, I know the background has changed a little bit. We're currently in the process of building a new shop, and things are kind of all out of whack, and we keep on moving our makeshift studio here and there. And so one day it will have a final resting place, and everything behind me will look great and wonderful, and it'll look like a proper setup. But we're getting there. It's been a little bit crazy between the gender reveal. We just got back from Michigan, which, by the way, the Drummond Island Jeep Jamboree Michigan Day 1 video will be out on YouTube this weekend, and so can't wait for that, for y'all to see that. So definitely want to be, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and hit that bell for all notifications so that you will get that notification when that video drops. So we're really excited about that, but it's been crazy around here because of the new shop. We're trying to get it ready. At the making of this video, the day that I made this video, I just got out of the shop, putting up insulation, things of that nature. So we're getting everything kind of situated, and it has been absolutely crazy around the house. So, still live a life and still got a lot to do around here, like cutting the grass and things of that nature. But we're trying to do the best we can. So hopefully you don't hold it against us. So going into today's main topic, it's going to be a little edgy, like I said, but I'm a big fan of lockers before light bars. Okay, you can go ahead and hit that pause button and exit out if you don't like me. It's okay. But lockers before light bars, guys. I will say it once. I will say it a million times. I think it's the cheat code to off-roading. But I want to go ahead and just kind of stop the whole discussion real quick, because I want to preface this by saying that I've got had a lot of comments saying that, oh, you run all these trails, you're on 40s and tons, there's no way my Jeep could follow me, and that is absolutely not true. I have people on 35s and 37s follow me all the time. I mean, just at the last Jamboree that I did at Stony Lonesome, we had a Jeep JL on 33 stock tires. They made it up switchback. They made it down 404. They made it up a lot of hard trails, and it absolutely was mind-blowing. She wheeled the crap out of that Jeep. So it can be done. I don't want you to think just because I'm on 1 tons and 40s that you can't follow me. It's just not true. Majority of the people that follow us are on 37s, if not 35s. This last trip that you will see Friday or this weekend, that when we post it from Drummond Island, we had people from 33s, 35s, and 37s. And then I think there was one other guy on 40s. And so, yes, does it make it easier? Absolutely. Do I not necessarily bottom out all the time, and it almost looks like I'm cheating? Yes, that's the point. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Isn't that the saying, I guess? But, I like to just point and shoot and have a good time, especially if I'm trail guiding. That is one reason why we did the 1 tons and 40s, is I can point, shoot, go up the trail, and then I can go down, park, come back, spot people up the lines, things of that nature. And I don't necessarily have to have a spotter, or most of the time I don't have a spotter, and sometimes I just have to point, shoot, and go. So it makes that a lot easier. But going back into the main subject matter of today is, lockers before light bars. I'm going to first by saying that the light bars are never going to get you unstuck, which if you don't have a winch, don't even want, just go ahead and just cut this video completely. Go buy a winch before you watch this one, and then go buy lockers before you buy the lights. So just go ahead and just go buy the winch first for the bumper, and then come watch this episode. So going back, lockers before light bars, because light bars aren't going to get you unstuck. If you're stuck off-road and it is nighttime, you're still stuck. The light bars aren't going to really help. So eventually you're going to run out of fuel, or you're just going to be stuck. So yeah, they're not going to get you unstuck, and they're not going to help you get over that obstacle. And so that's my biggest, my big number one is that light bars don't get you anywhere, unfortunately. I know it's the cheaper route because lockers are expensive. I get it. But I think it is a huge investment for your Jeep. It makes everything easier off-road. Yes, there are some cons to having lockers, and I'll go over those here in just a few minutes. There are some cons, so I'm not going to say they're all, glorious and glamorous, but they make the world of difference when off-road. Kind of going back to, that person on 35s and 37s, they have lockers. They can follow me majority of the time. I'm just not doing that crazy of trails. Have we done some crazy trails before? Absolutely. There were, like Pritchett Canyon, things of that nature. Yeah, you're probably going to want to be minimum 37s, if not 40s. I haven't been there in a while, so I would probably take 40s on that trail. There's just some trails that I would take a bigger tire just because of the obstacles. But we're not doing those on our YouTube channel that often. Because like I said, majority of the people who are following us are on the 35s and 37s. Going back into, the investment part of it, I think it is a huge investment because if you're doing the lockers, you might as well re-gear, especially if you've gone up in tire size. Now, you people that have the Rubicons, just go ahead and check that box because you already got the lockers, and that helps you out tremendously. And if you've had lockers and you've wheeled with lockers, you absolutely know it absolutely helps off-road and when you're especially in the rocks. I will say that someone that is a great driver that has an open can accomplish a lot off-road and follow a lot of people, but most of the time they're going to have to hit it harder and with a lot more wheel speed to get over obstacles. And you're like, well, why do you say that, Judd? Well, is because in a lot of videos, especially in some of mine that you've seen, some people have been open and they almost have to gun it because the problem is when you're open, only 2 tires basically are getting traction. The other 2 are not because they're not locked up. And therefore, you're basically just spinning the ones that aren't touching the ground. And so if you have to hit it with more speed so that you're carrying that momentum so that all the tires are kind of getting traction and that one or the other is not off the ground. So you're just trying to hit it with more speed, which usually ends up in breakage of some sort, or you hit something because you're trying to drive it faster than you should, which lockers usually solves that problem. Now, I will say here's one con of having lockers on that same subject matter. If you have lockers, and it usually happens in the rocks, I'm not saying it can't happen other ways, but it usually happens in the rocks, is you start bouncing. Now, if you're open and you're bouncing, it can have the same effect. If you're locked, it just kind of doubles down on it. It's not the hopping that's the problem, it's the sudden stop. And so the hopping's fine. It's just when it stops at the bottom and then snaps the drive shaft or axle shaft, that's your problem. Or the ring gear and pinion, you name it. One of those things are going to blow eventually. That's a con of having lockers because everything is locked up, has a lot more tension in it, and that's when things break. So if you are bouncing, don't bounce on obstacles. That's just a ticket straight, to go ahead and sign that check over because you're going to start replacing parts really quickly, unfortunately. Going into another, con of lockers is going into steering. Steering is a problem when you have lockers, especially the front, because that's where all the steering is. And so going left and right with lockers, especially on, is a problem, a huge problem, especially for people that still have the stock steering box and things of that nature. Now, if you are above 35s, I really, really recommend going with a new steering setup, and that includes a drag link and tie rod. So you're going to want something really heavy duty. It's not going to wear out as fast as factory, and it's going to be a lot more, stronger off the trail, and that most of the time is not going to break on you. So first of all, I would do that. But when your lockers are on off-road, it's just hard to steer. It's almost like you've got to spin up the motor a little bit to get the fluid moving to the box to actually turn, and then if you're bound, you're kind of stuck. So the solution to that is what we call ram assist. And what that does, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can either port your box or, send it out to get ported, or you can go with the PSC system, which we did, and that gives you not only a bigger steering gear, it gives you a ram and all the hoses and things of that nature, a bigger reservoir, a bigger pump, and all of that. If you do the factory one, you kind of keep the factory things if you port your box, but you still have a ram and everything. But what that does is that ram attaches to the axle, and then the other part of that ram attaches to your tie rod, and it forces those tires left and right. It's an absolute game changer. I've had it on when I had 44s and now that I have tons. And basically, I would recommend if you're on 37s or up, you basically have to have it. If you're wanting to play in the rocks and you're really wanting to wheel, because the factory steering is just not going to want to turn or last on you. You're putting a lot of strain on that steering box off-road if not having power, ram assist. And so I think it's a huge component. If you have questions about that, please send us a comment or send us an email, and I'd love to talk to you about that. Because that's a whole nother discussion, another topic for another day. RAM assist, because there's a few different avenues you can go down. They got full hydro, RAM, hydro assist, things of that nature. Because there's a couple different terms: hydro assist, RAM assist, things of that nature, and then full hydro, which is basically taking out all your steering components altogether, and it's full hydro. So completely different discussion for another day. But going back to the main subject matter is, if you've got lockers and you are having trouble turning, go ahead and get that ram assist. It's going to make a world of difference, and it's going to be a lot easier to wheel off-road. So that is a negative of having lockers up front. Like I said, you can be open. It's just a harder time, a rougher time, and it's just not as easy, unfortunately. And so the people that have the lockers are going to make obstacles look so much easier. And that is whether you're in a manual or in an automatic. I don't think it really matters, but being locked is very, very helpful. Now, I will add this one tidbit about lockers, and this goes out to all of y'all's, the Rubicon people here, because I'm a sport, and so I just have a button on my S-Pod that hits the rear locker. I currently have a Grizzly up front because we had some locker issues that they kept failing in our 60, but we're about to get another electric locker to put in the front, so we're excited about that, and hopefully we'll be able to show you that here in the future. Different company that we used in the past, and so we're excited about that, because I like selectable lockers over what I call an auto locker, so it automatically locks up. So I'm a huge component of the selectable. But going back to the Rubicon, guys, is I prefer to have my lockers on a rocker switch versus the Jeep telling me when I can put lockers on. And so the Jeep computer, you got to be I think at 4 low. Like I said, I'm not a Rubicon guy, so Rubicon expert as far as the computer system. But from my past experiences, you put it in 4 high, the lockers won't work. You have to put it in 4 low, the lockers will work. It takes a half a revolution almost to lock up. The lights are flashing. It doesn't want to lock up, blah, 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 blah. You hear the story over and over again. Why are my lights flashing? It's not solid. They're not locked, blah, 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 blah. So I recommend putting those lockers on a rocker switch, and that way you know it's on. So you've taken the Jeep computer completely out of it. And I know JLs have computer problems. Most Jeeps do have some type of computer problem, especially if it's newer. Just take that away from the Jeep. So put it on a rocker switch. You can use both, but having a rocker switch that basically says it's on, it's off, that makes a world of difference. That way you're not sitting on the dash trying to hit the button. Oh, is it off? Is it up? Is it down that turns it off? You hit the rocker switch, it's off, it's on, you know. So I recommend doing that. And there's a few different ways you can do that that procedure of, adding a switch or just taking it away from the Jeep completely. And so I recommend that to customers and to people with Rubicons, because it's a constant issue I see off-road. So there are some pros and cons of the Rubicon. The Rubicon's not the best or the greatest in the world. You can get away with a sport. So just know, guys, my Jeep was a sport at one time. We went to the 44s with lockers, and then to the 1-tons and lockers, and being open, I wheeled that for a while, and I can tell you, because we did switchback open, and that was a sketchy day. It can be done, but you're having to give it a lot because 2 tires are off the ground a lot of the time, on the corners because of how the terrain is out there. And you just got to give it a little bit more. So it's a lot sketchier in my opinion. So I recommend lockers. So I'm not going to hate on the Lightbars too much. I have some rock lights and things of that nature. I have 2 spot flood combos on the front of my Jeep. And then I have 2 lights that are off the A-pillar. And then just some Jeep headlights, which reminds me, I need to buy some new Jeep headlights because mine is one of them has a problem. So I'm going to have to update those pretty soon. So if you have a good headlight company that you like to use for your Jeep lights, please leave that in the comment section because I'd love to know because I'm needing some new ones. And then I have rock lights. So I have the KC Cyclones for rock lights as far as the the flood spot combos on the front. I have Baja Designs, a little mix and match of companies. But those are my opinion. Those are what I like, and that's what I have. So I'm not against light bars or lights in general. I just don't think you just have to have every light bar out there. I've had the 50-inch light bar. I've had the 20-inch light bar on the hood, and they just didn't seem to work for me that well. And I do wheel at night, and they just aren't all of what they're cracked up to be, in my opinion. Therefore, I try to go with quality versus quantity, and I stay away from the colors because the colors are great for parades and things of that nature, but most of the time they're going to get you pulled over or they're not going to help you in any way see off-road, and usually sometimes they're not as bright. Not all the time, but most of the time. So I have those in the front. I will say if you are doing rock lights, that is one of my biggest upgrades that I think is huge if you are off-roading at night. So you're really going to want to invest in some good rock lights. Now, that's not your Amazon rock lights. That's some quality rock lights that are very bright, and you need to position them in key locations, in my opinion. Therefore, putting them in the wheel well is, yes, if you have extra ones or you buy enough for that, I think that is great. But I really think you need to put them along, not like on the frame where they're going to be rubbed off by rocks. But I actually have mine, mounted to the tub of the Jeep and to parts of the frame that aren't going to come in contact with the ground. And so I have I have one over the front axle, one over the rear axle, one behind the front axle, and one in front of the rear axle on either side. And it makes all the difference. Like I literally have, 6 rock lights, and that's it. Now, do I need to add a few more? Absolutely. I need to add a few more up front, and probably one more to the rear is what I would like. But putting them in the wheel well, yes, it will kind of, cast over your tire, but it doesn't show the ground that well, in my opinion. And sometimes when you flex, you actually get up into the light if they're in the wheel well, and then they either break, or usually the time they break, or you break wires. Most of the time, they either fall off or you rip the wire in half, and then they're no good. So I will say that that is a huge upgrade, and you're like, well, Judd, why do you say that rock lights are a huge upgrade for off-roading? Because your spotters can now see your axles. They can see where your body possibly is hitting something, or rock, things of that nature, or, the frame rails, they can see that. When you stick your head outside the Jeep, you can see if there's anything on the ground that you don't want to step on. That's very helpful, but them in your wheel wells aren't going to help you. So just a tidbit there. I put them in key locations to where a spotter can see the axles and a spotter can see the frame. And if they can see those, majority of the time, they can help you get over the obstacle. And that's why I'm a huge component of where I place mine, because I am very not necessarily showy with my Jeep. I try to do everything for a purpose, off-roading wise. So I want everything to have a purpose and serve a purpose when I'm Jeeping, because if not, I don't see a point in it. Now, I do like my fancy things and, my little gizmos and gadgets here and there, but I really try to be purposeful on what I put on my Jeep and how much weight it adds, and does it truly help me off-road? Because like I said, my Jeep is basically just an off-road rig. It will go down the interstate at 70, but I treat it more or less so like an off-road rig all the time. So I really try to pay attention to what I'm doing to get the best benefit, the best bang for my buck when it comes to parts and things of that nature that I put on my Jeep. Even going for lights, because I'm not going to hate on lights forever, because I do think they're good. I just think that you don't have to have every color and every light that the catalog sells, because they're not helping you at all. If anything, it sometimes can makes it worse, because you're now blinding your spotter off road, and I try not to do that. And so with the lights that I have in place, sometimes I'll just turn off my headlights, and I've got the yellow lenses on the front, and so they're not as just super strong to the eyes, and that makes it so much better for the spotter to be able to see what my Jeep is doing and what the obstacle is underneath me that I possibly could be hung up on. So that's what I recommend. I also have a rock light inside of, well, they're kind of like all attached. They're like daisy chained to an extent. I have one in my engine bay that I mounted to the hood on one of the brackets because the hood is almost like two pieces of metal laminated, not laminated, but welded together basically. And the inner structure of it, the skeleton of it, there's a tab that I put some self-tapping small screws on, and made a little mount to where when you open the hood, it's bent just perfectly that it shines perfectly straight down on the entire engine bay. So if you ever have problems with wiring or any list of issues in the engine bay, you have a light for that, and it all switches on when I hit the rock light button, and it kind of casts a shadow down over that front axle, so it kind of adds a little light to that area. So it kind of helps in a weird way. So that's what I have for lights. Like I said, I'm not going to hate on the lights. I just think that the lockers are going to be a massive investment for you. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's probably going to be more expensive than just the lockers, because you're going to want to re-gear, things of that nature, depending on your build. And you really got to, I think the question of getting lockers or not, you really got to be truthful with yourself and your build on what you want to do. If you want to be playing in the rocks, if you want to do some of the trails that you see us doing on our videos and have done in the past, lockers are going to make that so much easier. If not, I'll be honest with you, if 40s and below, I do not believe, now somebody's going to serve me wrong, but like a trail like Cliffhanger or something like that, you're not getting over that without lockers. It's just not going to happen. If not, you're going to have to really give it some, and then there's a major potential for damage. So, you see trails that we're doing, and Cliffhanger is probably on, more the extreme side of things. I don't think it is, but, some people might say that's crazy. You're going to need lockers. Absolutely. And so it's a huge investment. I completely get it. Like I said, you're going to have to re-gear, things of that nature, probably at the same time, but you need to have that truthful conversation with yourself on what you want to do. Do you want to do a lot of these badges? Are you wanting to travel? Things of that nature. I'm going to be honest with you. If you like the mud and things of that nature, leave it open. I'll say, but if you're going to play in the rocks and you want to do a little bit of rock crawling, like I say, I like scratches underneath my Jeep. I do not like scratches on my body. I don't like dents on my body. I try to keep, the shiny side up and, all four tires on the ground. So I don't want any dents and dings. I like a nice, pretty Jeep like everybody else. Therefore, I want to make it easier, and lockers is definitely one of those ways to make it easier. So like I said, you just have to have that conversation of what trails you're wanting to do, where you're wanting to wheel, what your end goal is with your Jeep, and buy once, cry once. I was taught that as, a young kid. You just save up for what you really want versus just being, settled just for basically just what is the best thing at the time. Really try to save up and get the quality stuff, and really, think about what you want to be doing in your Jeep. Not just tomorrow, not just 6 months down the road, a year and a half, 2-3 years. What are you going to be doing then? Because the options or the upgrades that you do to your Jeep will, that's almost like a roadmap what you're going to do and which way you're going to go, because I'll tell you, hindsight's always 20/20. There are things on my build that I wish I had done differently, things that I wish parts and things that I would have left off or added. So you really got to start making those decisions, because when you choose one direction or another, sometimes it's not as easy going back the other direction. But lockers are one of those things that you just can't go wrong with, in my opinion. Get a quality locker. There's a whole debate that we could go over, and it's probably a whole nother podcast, whether, there's people out there that like the auto lockers or like a Grizzly, Detroit, things of that nature. You have e-lockers, you have air lockers. There's a whole debate over that. I'm a huge fan of e-locker. Depending on the brand, I've had good things with certain brands, and then I've had no problems with the 44s, but then when we had the 60s, we had a problem with an e-locker. And then there's some other brands out there like Ox that make air, mechanical, or electric, and you basically pick the components and you have one of those three, or you can change them out depending on how you're doing everything. It's a crazy setup, and that some cool things that are on the market now. And so there's lockers for days. There's a bunch of different ones, and you can kind of pick or choose. But really, the main two are an e-locker, whether it's an Eaton or an Ox locker, or you can do air. I'm not a huge fan of air. I know a lot of people are. I hear complaints whether it's an air leak or some type of seal problem, and so I don't want to have an extra compressor, which I have a twin air, ARB twin air, the dual compressor on my Jeep, but I just rather not even deal with that because I've heard nightmare stories about air lockers. I just want e-lockers because I know it's working. If it's getting power, if it's not getting power, if it's locking up, if it's not. I'm not trying to track down an air leak, because sometimes the air leak is not always the easiest thing to get to. If it's in a line, that's underneath the Jeep, great. But if it's in the actual housing, it's just a nightmare. So therefore, I'm a big fan of e-locker, just depending on your setup and what you're wanting to do. I will say air lockers, from what I've been told and what I've read, research-wise, air lockers are stronger. But in a 44 application, I have yet to see an e-locker not fail under just normal conditions. Obviously, anything could fail, but I've had really good luck with Dana 44 e-lockers, the Eaton ones, and so that's just my opinion. You can hate it, leave it, whatever you want to do with it. But yeah, it's my controversial take on the lockers over Lightbars. I hope that I haven't had too many haters, leave the show already. But it's just something that I'm a big big fan of, is lockers over Lightbars, because I think that's going to help you off-road. It's going to evolve your off-roading capabilities and your adventures, because now you can go more places and have more fun and not struggle as hard, because I think it's the cheat code to off-road. You can have the biggest tires, you can have the biggest setup, but if the wheels aren't spinning, you're not getting any traction and you're not getting down the trail. So therefore, I think it's just the secret sauce per se to a good trail, being accomplished, in my opinion. That's hard. So guys, we really do appreciate you tuning in today. I know it was controversial. I might get some comments in the comment section, so please hit me up. If I said something crazy or off the wall, please let me know. I will correct myself in the next Waypoint X Wednesday. But got to be a little controversial, a little edgy sometimes, and fill the crowd out just a little bit. But guys, we really do appreciate you tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment, hit that bell for all notifications. If you're over on Spotify, hit that follow button. But guys, we all also want to know where your next destination is. And as always, we hope to see you out on the trail.